Hey bad Koreans, how's it going? I love green onion pancakes, called Pajeon in Korean. Now, I have made so many different recipes taken from YouTube and the rest of the internet, and everybody says they have the crispiest, crunchiest recipe ever. Except when I make it, the outside usually isn't crispy or crunchy, it's kind of tough, and then the inside is kind of squishy and chewy, and I always end up being a little disappointed. Today we're going to try out 3 of the most popular YouTube recipes for Pajeon I could find. The first one is from Food52. The second one is from Straight Up Eats, and it's his updated version, which he says is even better than his original version. And the third one is from the godmother of Korean cooking herself, Maangchi. We're going to make them, we're going to eat them, we're going to score them, and then we're going to see if we could learn something from each and make our own ultimate version at the end. Who's with me? Gaja! So we've let it cool for a couple minutes. I'm going to use a pizza cutter. Pretty good. I'll get a corner piece. Cheers. The edge is very crunchy, but the middle is not. I would say they're using soybean paste instead of salt to make it savory, but I think it needs salt. And here's a middle part with no edge at all. It's bland, but if I'm not thinking about the blandness and I'm just thinking about crunch, that middle part, it has a nice firm outside, but let's see if I can show you. Look at that. The inside is very similar to a normal pancake. It's airy, sort of like a sponginess to it, which is not unpleasant. It gives it a nice chew, but I wouldn't call it crunchy. Okay, this one, I won't even dip. It is crunchy. The middle part is what's not crunchy, and I think the biggest sin is that it's very unsavory. It needs seasoning. It needs salt inside the middle because there's so much of it. And you saw how much gluten I was developing there. whipping and whipping and whipping it for almost 5 minutes. I couldn't even go the full 5 minutes. It just did not feel right. Not only that, I got tired, and 5 minutes is excessive. And that 1 little teaspoon of doenjang paste is not enough to make this whole thing really salty. However, those chilies are spicy. I'm gonna have one more. This dip, on the other hand, is really good. Not a disaster by any means, but I probably wouldn't make this one again. So on to straight up eats. Compared to the last one, it's a lot thicker. Here, let's get an edge. You can see it's a lot thicker. It really rose up. I think it was the combination of the soda water and the baking soda, and that reaction really got a lot of puff on the cook. So I'll have it without the sauce first. There's a nice crunch on the outside. There's definitely a more savory flavor in the center. And you get a lot more vegetables per bite because they're stacked up in there. Let me give that a bite. And for some reason, I taste the onion more in this one. Maybe because it's so much thicker. This is definitely better than the first recipe. It's much crispier on the tooth when you go into it. His technique, I didn't get it quite right. I neglected to do one thing that he does differently from everybody else, which is he wants you to put the batter in first, start to get that crisping, and then throw in your vegetables, and then put on more batter on top, and then flip it. So I didn't do that. I just threw in the vegetables and then put the whole thing into the pan. I will tell you that if you were to do this recipe and execute the way I did, which is kind of a mistake compared to his recipe, and I apologize because I'm sure he went through a lot of R&D to make it just the way it is. It's still tasty, still crunchy, but I feel like there's something about this thick inner center that makes this just not quite what I'm looking for when I think about this dish. But having said that, I can't stop eating it. So I would say this is a really good dish. Out of 10 on the crunch scale, this is a solid 7. Deliciousness, again, a solid 7. That first one, crunch score, 5. Deliciousness, 4. But this is a solid upgrade. Now, the last one we have to do comes from Maangchi, and her technique is actually quite different from the other two, and her recipe is even simpler than the other two. So this should be very interesting. That's a total fail. Okay, well, that didn't go the way I thought. Lots of things went wrong. I might have put too many green onions in a stack. I might have waited too long to put the batter down. I'm not sure, but we got something. Might as well try it. You know, flavor-wise, this isn't bad. As you might expect, it has maybe the best onion flavor of all three. But it's the texture we're really going for today. And what I'm finding with this is, it's like an open-faced sandwich. One side feels toasted, the other side feels almost raw. Unlike the other two, that only uses all-purpose flour. And there's no cornstarch and there's no potato starch. And I can tell. I can tell because even though there's browning and there's a sturdiness to the chew, there's no crisp and there's no crunch. And I think we can probably take some lessons from the first two. I really like this idea of Maangchi. I think I want to use this idea as well, but maybe there's a way to lightly batter a whole bunch of green onion, put it down into the oil to create some caramelization, and then add a little bit more batter afterwards. But that batter has some cornstarch and potato starch, so you get a little bit more of that shatteringly crisp, glassy kind of a texture that I'm really craving. So if I had to score this one from a crunchiness perspective, out of 10, it's probably just a 4. And then from a deliciousness, it's probably a 6. But again, I think on both those accounts, that's my fault. But right now, why don't we do this? Why don't we try to create the ultimate Pajeon recipe, taking away some of the learnings from these 3 really good, solid recipes that I think anyone would enjoy eating. That second one from Straight Up Eats being the best so far. Okay, let's give it a try. Sounds pretty crunchy, guys. That potato starch really makes a difference. There is thickness to this, but it's not as much as the second recipe because I didn't put in any baking soda to react with the club soda. But there's enough in the middle to give it a chew, hopefully. So let's start with an edge. Cheers. Very crunchy. That potato starch is incredibly crunchy and delicious. Okay, let's try it with a little dipping sauce. It's a great canvas for the dipping sauce. Honestly, this is pretty good. I mean, wow. This is the best one today. And I'm not just saying that. And it's because we're inspired by the potato starch used in the recipe from Straight Up Eats. But we're not using that leavening agent. And we're also inspired by Maangchi because she's talking about how do we get a little bit more browning on those scallions. All I can tell you is this is the crunchiest today. So I would give this a solid 8. I would leave room that there is a more crunchy recipe in the world, but this is a solid 8, maybe even a 9 in terms of crunch. And as far as taste, the real big thing is, can I taste the green onion? Absolutely, because there's not too much filling. And then 2, is there enough savoriness? Yes, because we adjusted that seasoning with the salt and that went right into the batter, and there's no doenjang in here, it's just salt making this tasty. And the sugar that's in it, you can't really taste it, but it probably does contribute to the browning along with the all-purpose flour. So I'd say, flavor-wise, I would give this one a 9 as well. I tell you what, we might have started this episode as bad Koreans, but after making a recipe this crispy and crunchy, I think we're all a little less bad. Until next time, I'm Sung the Bad Korean. Cheers. Oh,